Welcome to GenerationTAG module. We are going to be covering the SLA due date failsafe procedure that we have in place, which will involve running an on-force report that details certain work orders that fit a particular criteria. This particular report essentially should be ran after all of these scheduling phone calls have been made for the day and before the end of the workday. So this should be one of the last tasks for those who are feeding the work orders into T-sheets. This will prevent us from failing on our SLA dates on work orders that may have been overlooked during our daily scheduling processes. The first step naturally is going to be to log into OnForce. So we're going to log into OnForce. Log in. Okay. So we are going to run a report going back to the first day of the prior month. In order to access the reports charm on the left side, you have to go into active work orders, and then the reports charm will appear on the left hand side. Click on reports and then go to work order activity reports. What we're going to do is create a custom report, and you can choose either Excel or CSV. The resulting data ends up being nearly identical. There's very little distinction between the two. So we'll just use the default CSV, which stands for comma separated values. At any rate, we're going to go back to the first day of the prior month. That would be August 1, 2019. And then we're going to go down here and check off all of these boxes. Many of the columns in the resulting data are going to be irrelevant. That's okay. You could just disregard them. Now this takes about 10 to 15 seconds for the website to process the query. When the report has been generated by the website, you'll see this screen appear again, and of course you'll have a link to the file down here. At this point you can either click on the file, or you can right click and then go to show in folder and then open the file from there. I'm just going to go ahead and open. It's less steps. Okay, so here's the report. The first step in managing this report is we're going to highlight row 1. We're going to click on data, and then we're going to go to filter to click on the filter. That will add these filter drop downs here. The next thing we're going to do is highlight row 1 again, go to view, click freeze panes, and then freeze the top row. That will enable you to scroll down without having this top row scroll off the top of the screen. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight every cell. We're going to highlight the entire worksheet. And you do that by going to this square in the upper left hand corner that's to the left of the column headers and above the row headers. The row headers. So that highlights the entire spreadsheet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to auto size all of the columns. The easiest way to do that is just to basically run your mouse between any of two columns. So you'll see that the mouse cursor is currently an arrow pointing down. You move the mouse until it gets to basically a cross, and then just simply double click. Okay, so we have a little bit more of a cleaner data set here. For visual efficiency, you can always just go in and just reduce the size of some of these columns if you want. Doesn't matter. It's not necessary. If you want to be more efficient, you can just leave them how they are. Okay, so now we're going to segregate out the data that we need to review. The first thing we're going to segregate out is, and you do that by clicking on the drop down. We're going to go to column D here, Pro Name. Click the drop down. We're going to deselect everything and then just select accepted assignments. You can deselect the rest of them. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove all of the work orders where the status equals paid. So we can go and deselect paid. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to service end date. Okay, typically, whatever the service end date is, that is the SLA due date for that work order. Except the time would be 23:59 or 11:59 p.m. rather than whatever date, time is in this column here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on the drop-down header. We're not going to remove anything. We're just going to sort oldest to newest. And you'll see now we have our data set that we're going to be working with and that we need to analyze. So the critical factors that we're looking for here are all work orders that are where the service end date is before 2 business days from the current date. So today, as you can see down here, is September 11th. So the most optimal scenario is the earliest date in this data should be 2 business days from 9/11, which should be 9/13. So that means that these 9 work orders here are red flags, and also is indicative that there has been some non-compliance. There should never, at the end of the day, optimally and preferably, there should never be work orders for the next business day, because these end users should have been called and scheduled out. And in the event they're not called, they still need to be scheduled out because our SLA due date is for the following day. So no matter what happens, we have to send the technician out to that site, whether that end user has been called or not. Now, OnForce is going to ding us for not calling them, but what we don't want to happen is for them to ding us twice, once for not calling them and twice for not showing up and failing to meet our SLA date. That just compounds the problem. So no matter what, these need to be entered into T-sheets. There are obviously a few exceptions. For example, canceled by end user. Obviously the work order has been canceled. Obviously, this one does not need any action to it. Okay, so that we can just segregate out. We'll just do all the 12s because these are the ones we really need to pay attention to. The next step in this process to figure out where the non-compliance is and to remedy the situation so we don't get penalized by our client for missing our SLA date is we need to go into each one of these work orders and do 2 things. We need to put the work order into T-sheets and schedule them for the technician on the following day, and we need to find out where the non-compliance was. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. I'm going to just go ahead and hit copy. You can always go up by hitting Control-C, and then you go back to OnForce, and it doesn't matter what screen you're on. You can just go up to here into the search, paste the work order number in there, hit search, and here it pulls up the work order. Okay, so as you can see, the time is now 4:45. So it looks like a note was put into the system at 4:17. So this note was put in after, or I should say before, everybody's been notified that this is the process. So as you can see here, the work order was accepted on or around September 6th, which is last Friday, at 1:51 p.m. This tells me that a total of 0 attempts was made to contact this end user between September 6th and September 11th. That is unacceptable, and that will be addressed. That is a clear and demonstrably obvious non-compliance issue. That should absolutely never happen. So at any rate, the next thing we need to do is put this into T-sheets. So you would add that onto your list of work orders to put to import into T-sheets. So we'll take a look at another one. We're going to copy, going to work on force. Okay. So it looks like the last action on this was Friday, September 6th. Nothing's been done since then. Again, this is an obvious case of non-compliance and needs to be addressed with whomever is performing the phone calls. Nothing in the notes indicates that we should not be going out to site. There are some instances where we would not go out to site. The primary scenario wherein we would not put this into T-sheets is if on the prior visit we were sent out as an auto dispatch. Typically, if we're auto dispatching and our technician arrives and obviously the end user is not there, or there's some issue where the site is not ready, we need to confirm the site is ready before we go out again. So in that particular scenario, we would deviate from the default and not put this into T-sheets. I don't see anywhere in here where that is the case, where we were auto dispatched. So this is indeed another instance of non-compliance. We'll use this third one as the last example. Okay. She's on okay, sending her an email. Okay. So it looks like we have not it does not appear that this was an auto dispatch. That means that we should be adding this into T-sheets. So again, this is another example of non-compliance, although it is not as egregious as the ones before, because it does look like some attempts were made to contact the end user. The standard, however, is whether we contact the end user or not, the business day before the SLA due date, which in this particular case is 9/12/19, the business day before, meaning 9/11, we need to auto dispatch a technician out to this site, whether we've gotten in contact with the end user or not, whether Pitney Bowes has responded with alternate contacts or not. We need to send our technician out. That is a new directive from Pitney Bowes, so we need to follow that directive. And any time we do not follow that directive, it is non-compliance. So that essentially is the process for the SLA Failsafe report that is to be run near the end of the business day to make sure that we did not miss any actionable work orders. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Garrett. Thank you.